Today we are going through the skills I wish every bike owner knew, regardless of what type of biking you do and if you're just starting out or a seasoned vet. Unless you have a Bosch e-bike, your bike won't have a check engine light like your car when something is going wrong or you need servicing. Most riders don't check the basics on their bikes often enough, which leads to costly repairs or trailside mechanical breakdowns. We really want to avoid these things, and by doing some of the things we're going to cover today routinely, you're going to have a happier bike, save money, and most importantly, be super safe when you're out riding. Today, we're going to cover the key things that I hope you know and practice. As a disclaimer, I am a professionally trained mechanic. The following steps, if not performed properly, can be dangerous. So I do recommend consulting your local Tern dealer for one-on-one education when possible. First, we're going to cover basic tips to get started. Then we are going to roll into the key things I want every bike owner to know. We're going to cover a lot in this short session, and I want you to kind of visualize what you need to do, take notes, and as soon as possible, either tonight or tomorrow morning, go out and perform these skills while these thoughts are top of mind. Number one, try to do all these things enough time ahead of your ride so you aren't rushing around, and if you need to reference notes or a video, you've given yourself time. My second tip, do your bike first. It is always easiest to make a kid or spouse wait if you have their bike in your hands and working on it, instead of them riding off while you are finishing up your bike. And then my last tip, and that's to give yourself grace and time to learn these skills. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I'm certain there's something you are really good at in life that I wouldn't even know where to begin. There are a few super basic tools that every bike owner needs. The first one are gloves. These aren't often talked about, but I personally don't want to be covered in grime after I've worked on my bike. It's also worth noting I keep these in my pack for any side of the road flat changes or when I need to help somebody. The next thing you need is a good floor pump. Any person that owns a bike should have a good floor pump available to them. I look for something that's taller with a gauge up high so I can easily see it. The larger the pump body, typically the faster you can pump up your tires. The last thing you need is some bike lube and an old rag or shop towel. Keeping your bike chain lubed will help prevent your gears from wearing out quickly, and it keeps your bike shifting well. I personally use a Teflon-based lube because it goes on the easiest and doesn't clog up your drivetrain. We'll cover these steps in a moment on how to lube your chain. In the bike world, we remember basic bike maintenance as the ABCs: air, brakes, and chain. Starting off with air, this is the most important thing to know as a bike rider and owner. Keeping your tires properly inflated will help prevent flats and help your bike ride the best and most efficient that it can. For my city bikes, I'm checking them every 2 weeks. I have myself trained to check them. For my road bike, I'm checking them every time I ride unless I ride back to back in less than a 24-hour time period, because those high pressure tires are super sensitive, and difference of 5 to 10 pounds really matters. To figure out how much air you need, look for the imprint on the side of your tire that will say a range of PSI. City bikes are typically 40 to 60 PSI. Road bikes are 80 to 120 PSI. Every single type of tire has a different range, so find yours. If you don't know where to be in your range, start in the middle. After I'm done pumping up my tires, I'm always checking them for cuts, glass, and wear. I simply spin it in front of me and I'm looking at the tread. Just remember, air pressure is by far the most important part of keeping your bike maintained and having a safe and reliable set of wheels under you. Now that we've covered air, let's move on to B for brakes. This step is really a safety check. We're going to grab one brake lever and try to push your bike forward with that lever held, and then you repeat with the other side and the other lever. If your brake levers come back to the handlebars, or it's pretty easy to push your bike forward with that one brake squeezed, you really should visit a bike shop before riding. It could be your brake pads are low, or maybe if you have cables or hydraulic system, something is not going right. So don't overlook this step. If your brakes feel funny and they don't stop you properly, don't go riding and visit your bike shop. Alrighty, we have pumped up our tires, we've checked them for wear, we've done a safety check on our brakes, and now we are moving on to C, which is your chain. Not properly lubing your chain is one of the most costly things bike riders overlook. Let's talk about how to lube your chain so that you're not wearing out those expensive parts of your chain and cassette, and you're keeping your bike shifting well. I like to lube my chain after a bike ride. I do this because we are actually trying to lube inside of the links, and we don't want the outside of our chain to be heavily lubed and then going to ride, because it's just going to pick up a lot of dirt and grime, which is not the point of lubing your chain. The first step is to lean your bike against a wall with the gears and chain facing out. We don't use the kickstand because we need to be able to back pedal the chain. You're gonna wanna probably put something under the chain area like a piece of cardboard. And then we take our rag and gently grab the lower section of the chain as you back pedal 3 to 4 rotations. If you have a long style type of bike, like a cargo bike, you may need to do this 5 to 6 times. Now that you've wiped off the grime to the best of your ability, we're now going to apply the lube to the same section. Applying a very gentle stream of lube to that same section of the chain, we're going to back pedal 3 to 4 times as the lube hits our chain. I then let it soak, ideally a few hours, or if I had the forethought, I applied the lube the night before I need to ride. Next morning before my ride, I take my rag and go to a clean part of the rag. Holding that lower chain section gently, I'm going to back pedal again to clean off the excess grime. A newer style of bikes are electric bikes, and for the most part, your maintenance is exactly the same for a quality e-bike from a bike shop to a non-electric bike. There's only a couple of things that I want you to know if you're riding an electric bike or thinking of purchasing one. The first thing is that you might need to lube your chain a bit more often. This is due to the additional torque or assistance an e-bike motor gives you. You're putting a lot of pressure on that chain. We're also going to want to check our brakes a little bit more often because the bikes are typically heavier and we're going a faster speed. And then lastly, this is specific to e-bikes, we want to talk about battery hygiene. This is pretty straightforward. Take your e-bike battery inside your house, especially if it's below freezing or above 70 degrees in your garage. We want to charge inside when possible. And if you're going on a vacation or you're not going to be riding your bike for a few weeks, we want to store the battery where it's 30 to 60% charged. This allows space for the lithium ion to shrink and swell inside of that battery casing. And that's it. The rest of it's just a normal bike. So we just covered the ABCs of bike maintenance. Practice these, remember them, add them to your calendar, especially as we get ready for the riding season. We want to get in the habits of having a safe and reliable bike. I found if you do most of these things, you're going to prevent those mechanicals, blowouts, and just dangerous things that can happen on our bike. Now that we've reviewed the ABCs, there are a couple more skills that I just want you to be aware of that you should think about learning if you want. The first is to know how to remove your front and rear wheels, and then the second is to know how to change a flat tire. I want to be the first person to tell you that it's okay if you have no interest in changing a flat tire, As long as you're within cell range and you have an emergency contact to come pick you up, that's totally cool. But if you want to take it up the next level, do it, because then you can ride further, more confidently, and be that hero on the side of the trail or road with all of your friends.